Welcome back to another episode of the Rock Fantasy Files on the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel. I'm Stephen Keeler, your host, and I'm here tonight once again. This is Volume 4, and we're not talking about Black Sabbath. This is Volume 4 of our ongoing discussion with the two great English heavy metal bands, Judas Priest and Iron Maiden. And tonight we're moving into the mid-'80s, maybe the late '80s. We're going to be talking about a couple of the albums that came out in that era. And we'll talk about what we like from each album and what we don't like from each album and kind of pick a bit of a winner, I guess. I've got Tony Dio with us tonight from the South. There's no Miles from the South. Where's Miles? Miles, we missed you. Come back, brother. We got James Delisle from the mighty Crucial Pain, who's going to be coming to Quinspins August 24th, so mark your dates down. We have 13 bands that are going to be playing a benefit with all the proceeds going to a friend of ours. So we got Tim Dennebaum from the British Steel. We've got Count Ralphus with his Anvil shirt. We were fresh off interviewing Lips from Anvil, and it was a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, it was good.
It was a good one. People seem to be digging that on the channel. So we're going to kick this off tonight, and I'm going to let Tony Dio kick us off and tell us what the first two albums we're going to talk about. And I'm going to go last and just listen and get my head full of what's going on, and I'll give my pick at the end of the round.
So we're trying to put these. We had to put a couple of albums together because Turbo and Ram It Down were originally supposed to be one double album called Twin Turbos. And they ended up deciding to go the route of just releasing Turbo, and it was more commercial. Side 2 was supposed to, or side 3 and 4, that is, if we'd done double album, would have been what a lot of what we got on Ram It Down a few years later, which was the heavier side. Some of the songs that were recorded supposedly have been used as some of the bonus tracks on those reissues that came out in the early 2000s, like Red, White, and Blue, and several of the Prisoner of Your Eyes and different ones. Yeah. So we wanted to put those two records, basically Ram It Down and Turbo, as one against Somewhere in Time by Iron Maiden, being the similarities and styles and the year, the like 86, 87 or whatever period.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll start off. I mean, Turbo was a really commercial record. A lot of people hate it. I remember when it came out, people were saying, "Oh, yeah, Priests have sold out." They were trying to have more commercial success. They changed their image. They looked more in line with the LA bands at the time. With their costumes changed. They kind of dropped the leather and studs, and well, they didn't drop the leather, but they dropped the black and the studs, and they went with these colorful, almost like racing outfits and stuff that they were wearing.
Yeah.
Motocross or NASCAR driver or something would wear, or IndyCar driver,
like a Mad Max look.
And it was Turbo, so you had that whole, here's the album cover. Of course, that's the fist on the gear shift here. And so they were going for that image of whatever. Rob Halford had always short hair. He actually had long hair at one period, and a mullet, if you want to get at it. And I remember KK's up there with the shades and the big permed hair. And yeah, they definitely changed their image big time for that. And first single was Turbo Lover, or maybe I think the first single they released, if I remember right.
Locked In, maybe.
Locked In, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a 12-inch single for Locked In.
Cool.
Yeah, I said 12-inch. Actually, that's Parental Guidance. There's Locked In. I'm sorry, there's a Locked In single, and then they had Turbo Lover was the second single off the album. There's a remix of that song. Like, you need an extended version of Turbo Lover. That was the extended version of it. And then they put out Parental Guidance. And if you remember, the PMRC was real big at this period, where they were putting stickers and stuff on albums to try to warn parents what not to buy for their kids and what their kid would be buying. So they wrote this song about, we don't need no parental guidance. one of the worst Judas Priest songs ever. Just not a good song at all. But when the album came out, I liked it for the most part. I thought it was okay. I didn't hate it. I saw them on that tour that summer. Docking opened. It was a great show, great stage show, just killer stage show. Which they actually immortalized that tour on their Priest Live album that came out after that. And but there's a lot of good songs that were on there. I mean, Out in the Cold, I think is a great song from Judas Priest on here. I liked I didn't think Locked In was that bad. Private Property is awful. Terrible song. Rock You All Around the World. I mean, it's a
Catchy.
but Out in the Cold is my favorite thing on here.
Yeah.
Besides the last song here, Reckless, great track. I
Great
think that would
song.
have been some of the heavier albums. They actually were approached about putting that song on the Top Gun soundtrack, and they turned it down. And they in that album went super platinum, the Top Gun soundtrack. So they probably hated they didn't put a song on that. But Hot for Love is another bad one. Yeah, maybe there's not as many great songs here, but I don't hate this record like I did for. I went through the '90s and stuff when I was just in the heavier stuff and just like never listened to this. And then I started collecting Judas Priest stuff, and I started picking up everything I could find. And they did release a lot of singles for this album. I even picked up the remastered version because the cover was different. I thought it was neat looking. So,
Yeah.
and the CD has a live show with it as well. That's really good. But like I said, I don't. There's a few songs on it that I like now, so I don't hate it as much as I did. But it's definitely been the most ridiculed album of their catalog for sure. And then a couple of years later, they come back. So that was 86. So yeah, 2 years later before they did the live album. And then after the live album, a lot of the stuff that was supposed to be the heavier tunes on the Twin Turbos proposed album came out as Ram It Down. And this was supposedly the return to form album for Priest. And it definitely has some heavy stuff. Ram It Down's a great track. The song Heavy Metal's cool. Hard as Iron's a good one. Blood Red Skies. I mean, that's one that
Great
they
song.
playing in concert. I mean, they still play it to the day. I like I'm a Rocker. I thought that was a good song. There's some cheesy ones on here. Come and Get It, and Love Zone's pretty bad. Worst song on here. Okay, I go back. They didn't put. They didn't end up putting the song from Turbo on the Top Gun soundtrack. So they get offered, hey, we want you to do a song for this movie. So they're going, yeah, we'll do it. They did one of the worst ideas ever put down on wax. They recorded their cover of Johnny Be Good.
Johnny Be Good.
For the movie Johnny Be Good. And which was a Anthony Michael Hall movie or something about a football player. And so that's featured on Ram It Down as well, but they released it as the first single. And I think this album would have done much better if they had not released that as the first single and had put Ram It Down maybe out as the first single, because that's the hard driving song. And you guys remember when Painkiller came out and the first song we got was Painkiller. Everybody's like,
Right.
if they had put Ram It Down out, I think that would have definitely regained their throne on top of the metal heat there, because it's just a hard driving song. And like I said, Johnny Be Good was just not a good track. So what's you guys' take on it?
Yeah, James, we'll go with you next. And we'll go over to
Okay.
Tim and down the count. And back to me.
So I can't stand Turbo, and I love glam. And that's Priest's kind of glam album, really. Tony was saying with the image and all, and not only the image, but the sound too was so polished. And it's
I
just
left out synthesizer. There's synthesizers all over
Guitar
Turbo,
synths.
and that was another big change for them too. And that
yeah.
synth guitar sound, and that's when they really changed their sound. Sorry to butt into, but I left that out.
No,
That's
all
a
right.
big part of the sound that we're describing here.
That is a big piece of it, and I feel that that's why that album is so fucking just sissified to me. Like there's no balls anywhere in it at all. I don't even own it, so I can't even look at the song list.
Wow.
I don't even have it. I've heard it plenty of times. I tried to get into it. When Priest did all the remastered CDs where you put the spines together and it's got the Hellion thing, I bought that one and I bought Ram It Down, and I wound up trading them in at some point because I think that they both suck. My main problem with Ram It Down, it's heavier. They got rid of the synth guitars and all that stuff. It's a harder album, but I wish they would have waited to get Scott Travis on drums before putting that album out.
Good point.
Because
Yeah.
it's got a drum machine on it, and it sounds like the stupid 80s Nine Inch Nails drum sound. I can't stand that shit. I hate industrial music. I hate drum machines. I need a live person behind the drums playing the drums. It's a very big, important part of why I love hard rock and heavy metal so much is the rhythm
drumming.
section. So both of those albums can eat my ass. That's my
Imagine
opinion there.
imagine if Scott Travis had played on Ram It Down.
It would have been more like
It would have
Painkiller.
been a lot better, but
Yeah.
I don't think anything could have saved Johnny Be Good. That
No.
is
No.
that is
If they had
worst.
done the traditional version of the song, I think I would have liked it better than the revamped, like rearranged version. I don't like it at all. Yeah.
Possibly. I can't. That's a song that I can't stand. Like, I didn't like the original, so it's like nobody was gonna save that for me. So that's my take there, is both of those albums completely and utterly stink, and I don't even have them in my collection.
So you don't have any favorite songs from it that you just want to pop on and listen to, James?
I don't have a single favorite song from either album. If somebody put them on, I wouldn't go, "Oh my God, I'm gonna, put a shotgun in my mouth and pull the trigger with my toe." But there's no room in my Judas Priest collection for those two records at all. Same thing with Nostradamus. Nostradamus can eat my ass too. Stop with the opera thing. Just
Well,
fucking
James, CDs, a lot of times you can find CDs cheap now. So if you ever find those two for like $2 and you can finish your spine and so they'll look good on your shelf, it's worth it. It's worth the $6.
I don't got the room. I don't got the room, Tony.
The funny
So,
thing
yeah,
about
that's my take
the
on
funny
those
thing
two
about
records.
like
Are we going to compare? Because Tony didn't compare Somewhere
I
in
was going to let
Time.
everybody go around to Priest and
Okay.
we go back to
okay,
Iron Maiden.
Fair enough. On to the next.
we're doing it that way. Okay, great. So yeah, I guess I'll go. I'm gonna mess it all up with you tonight. I'm gonna go right now since we're doing it this way. I'm looking at the list from both of these albums. If I'm picking anything from these albums, I mean, I don't really like the song Turbo, but it's become a Judas Priest favorite. And it's weird because I just saw them twice, of course, on the tour. And when Turbo Lover's being played, people are going crazy.
Yeah.
They do love that song live. You're
and-
absolutely right. People love it. I mean, that used to be that would be when I'd go to the bathroom or get a beer or something,
I was just going to say that's the piss song.
Yeah.
And I tell you, but like when Saints in Hell was being played at both shows I saw, like you look around and people are
don't
just
know
like, or Turbo Lover, they're like,
it.
Wow.
My good friend Ben Worth was even yet singing Turbo Lover, and I'm looking over, I'm like, well, he knows, like, of course he's younger, they're in their 20s, they know that song, but they don't, maybe some don't know. Like, and me, we're like, Butch Jones mentioned this, he saw it, he's like, we're going like crazy for Saints in Hell, and you look around, and then it's just the opposite. But so I guess even though I don't really like that song that well, if I was off of the Turbo album, I mean, there's nothing I really like off that album. I'm with James on that. So maybe I'm picking Turbo off of anything. Ram It Down, the song Ram It Down. We saw that tour. That tour came to Orange County Fairgrounds in Middletown. They had I think it was Ram It Down tour. Maybe I'm mixed up. Someone's gonna correct me.
Well, I know they played on Painkiller tour.
Painkiller,
Turbo.
they played was it
They played
Turbo?
Turbo.
It was
Yep.
Turbo Tour. It wasn't the Ram It Down tour. Okay, so the song Ram It Down, Heavy Metals, okay, Blood Red Skies, but I'd never go back and listen to this record either. I never go back to listen to these albums. I mean, if you're giving these ratings to me, be like 3, maybe 4. I don't know, out of 10. I really don't go back. I mean, the album cover from Ram It Down is pretty cool. A fist pounding the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I think I'm with James. I might have a copy of Ram It Down. I definitely never purchased Turbo. Of course, we have it for sale in the store, and I can listen to it on Spotify if I have to, but I don't usually want to on either
I got
one.
the song "Reckless." That's actually pretty good. Sounds like it could be on some of the earlier records.
Okay,
That's a good song.
so the Twin Turbos, give a twin thumbs down from Rock Fantasy.
Winter blows.
Turbo.
Sorry, Rob, if you're watching. I know you watch Sea of Tranquility. I don't know if you're over to my channel, but the next album we talk about is a lot better from Judas Priest. But here we go, Tim.
All right. Well, I'm thinking about this. So in British Steel, we never do anything off of Ram It Down. So I don't know if that means anything. Probably
Nothing.
does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does
Um,
mean something if you're a tribute band and you're not.
Um,
Or did you? What song would you even think of doing?
so
Like-
we have done a couple songs. We've done Ram It Down and we've done I'm a Rocker, but we haven't done them in eons. Actually, I like doing Ram It Down. That was actually a fun song.
Mhm.
But it's kind of funny. I like Turbo better than Ram It Down, I think. I'm one of the rare people that actually I don't mind Turbo because even though it's very pop for them, I think the songwriting itself, I mean, yeah, there's a couple like parental guidance and stuff, but I think the songwriting is actually not bad. Out in the Cold, I think, is a great song, and we still do that one.
Yeah,
For
sure.
And we do Turbo. It's, again, people love it. So it's a popular song. So we do it. And we have done Locked In like a couple times, and we haven't done it. And like we did it like a couple shows and then didn't do it anymore. I don't know why, because that was kind of fun to do too. But so, and I'm looking, Tony, here I'm looking on Wikipedia, and they have the track listing here, and it mentions the Twin Turbo. It mentions it here, talks about the leftover tunes, and it has wait a minute. Okay, songs left off of Twin Turbo. So Ram It Down was one of the songs that was supposed to be on there. The title track, Hard as Iron, Love It, Love You to Death, Monsters of Rock. That's a good portion. Yeah, that's a good portion of the album.
Good portion of
so-
what became "Ram It Down."
Right, exactly. So that's a good chunk of the album. And then Red, White, and the Blue, I think, was released. That's in All Fired Up, our bonus tracks now. But yeah, and Heart of a Lion, which was it Race Rex did that. Remember
Mhm.
they recorded that years ago.
Yeah.
And then Judas
And
Priest
Halford.
actually ended up releasing it later on.
Rob Halford put it out on his. It was a bonus,
Yeah.
one of the studio tracks on his live album.
Right. And I think Judas Priest released it as a bonus track too on an album, on one of the.
They put it on
remasters.
I think it was the demo version was on the box set that came out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, Ram It Down. I think if Scott Travis was around for that album, I think it would have been more like Painkiller, especially a song like Ram It Down. That was like a Painkiller type song. Can you imagine that with double bass? How that would have sounded? That would have been wicked. But yeah, we again, like right now, we haven't done anything off of Ram It Down in forever, like years and years. But yeah, I mean, I actually think Turbo is a much stronger album. That's my opinion, but Ram It Down's definitely not one of my favorites, I would say. And I'm one of those rare breeds that actually doesn't mind the Turbo album. I don't. I think it's got some good stuff on it, and some bubblegum stuff by their standards too. Absolutely. And I saw that tour. Crocus opened up for him. Saw him in Troy, New York, at the PR Fieldhouse. It was a great show, but it was definitely weird. I mean, Halford came out on this goofy looking bike. It wasn't a Harley. It was like something out of a Mad Max movie. I remember
Yeah.
that. That was a little bit weird, but the show
Yeah.
itself was great. The set list was awesome. And I saw Ram It Down too. They played at Saratoga Performing Arts Center with Cinderella opening up for them. That was pretty awesome too. It was a good show. I remember.
Now, which tour was that, Tim? Who was
Ram
in
It
the-
Down. They played at SPAC.
I
Sir-
believe the Ram It Down tour was at Middletown because Cinderella was the opening act there too. Then
Maybe, but did they play
We have
their?
to- we
did
have
they
to
play their
Google it,
Painkiller
Ralphus.
too?
maybe, yeah.
It's possible because back in the days, back in those
Because
days,
I kind of remember having a Ram It Down concert shirt. And
yeah, I had the
definitely saw him
program
with
too.
Cinderella.
You
yeah.
saw them where, Tim?
Saratoga Performing Arts Center.
Florida?
No, it's
no, not
Saratoga.
Saratoga.
I thought you meant
Sarasota.
Saratoga, like Florida. I said I got
Saratoga
a
Springs.
I got a bootleg from Florida, from Miami, from the
Oh,
good
no, that
set
was up
list
in
of
Saratoga,
songs.
New York.
The set list for the songs are, I mean, great. I mean, they brought the Sentinel back and
I remember the
Beyond
Sinner
the
was
Realms
in
of
there.
Death.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was a
Mhm.
great show. I remember that. It definitely rocked. They opened up with Hellion Electric Eye. I remember that.
hmm
That was a good show. But yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on those two albums.
Okay.
Not in my top favorite albums, but
No, of course. Cool. Ralph?
All right. So, back when Turbo came out, it wasn't like today where you're getting single or songs put on YouTube like a month or 2 months ahead of time before an album. So when Turbo came out, I got it like the first day. I got it on vinyl in my collection. I ran right out and got it. They were one of my favorite bands. So I loved the album before it, Defenders of the Faith. So I was just right there. If I would have seen the Turbo video before and seen what they look like and everything, I wouldn't have went out and bought it on the first day. The image really killed it for me. I didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Motley Crue got so big at a time where like all these old bands were spooging up the hair. Ozzy had
Mhm.
spooged hair and glitters on his stuff, and even Dio at one point was spooging his hair up a little bit. It was like everybody was kind of going in that way, and it's at the same time I'm getting deep into Slayer and Metallica and stuff like that. So it just
Yeah.
came at the worst time because when that came out, I hated that album. Didn't like any songs on it at all. I've seen them do Turbo a million times live now, all the time. They play it always, and I don't mind it when I'm at the concert. I've heard
Yeah.
it. Now, as long as I'm not seeing the video and the way they look back then doing it, I don't mind it. Now, the thing about I thought I got a bootleg videotape of when they played in Middletown. So I'd have to check the date, but I always thought of it as the Turbo tour when they came to Middletown at the fairgrounds. Because
Pretty
I remember
sure.
not going. I didn't go, and they played 5 minutes from me, and I didn't go because I hated that one album so much. And I'd never seen Priest before, but that's how badly I hated that album.
Mm.
And I didn't go 5 minutes away. And when I got the videotape, they only did like 2 songs off of Turbo. Like I would have just got nothing but classics. So every time I watched that back in the day, I was like, damn. But even then, they had the stupid outfits on and stuff, but they still kicked ass. And I kind of regretted not going for years because I didn't go until Ripper was in the band. But yeah. And then when Ram It Down came out, same thing like Tony was saying, to start off with that video, that was the dumbest thing ever. But because Turbo is such a letdown to me, I didn't give a shit when what they could have put out the best song on Ram It Down and it wouldn't have saved it for me. By then, I'm already into the band Death and early stages of death metal, and so I just don't give a fuck about any of this stuff. I had recently listened to the whole discography. I went from the beginning to the end because everybody was talking about the Invincible Shield. So I figured, let me just go right through I want to know where I put Invincible Shield in this whole ranking.
Mm.
So I went from the beginning, and it was the first time I listened to Turbo and Ram It Down since it came out. Like I just hadn't gone back to it ever, like the whole album, And it
Mhm.
wasn't as bad as I remember because I guess the overall shock is gone. But I still just never go to those albums, and they're my least 2 favorite albums in the whole Judas Priest discography.
I can
That's it.
tell you, I
Yeah.
can prove you wrong, Ralph. I Googled the Ram It Down tour, which was called the Mercenaries of Metal Tour. It was
yes, I remember that
1988.
now.
Was 1988. And yes, Middletown, New York is on it. And July 27th, 1988, which I believe was during the fair. And It was, and then they came up and saw Tim on August 5th at Saratoga Springs. But yes, it was the Ram It Down tour. I was correct.
All right. Well, they came out like like I
Yeah,
said,
like 2
they were
years
one
before.
album to me. So I thought it
And
was
you were probably like done when I'm running. It's like, I don't know.
oh, I was totally done with them. But I
Yeah.
thought
Yeah.
I always when I remember watching the tape, I remember thinking there wasn't that many songs off the new album.
Yeah.
But I gotta rewatch it, I guess.
It said it was the final tour the band did with longtime drummer Dave Holland.
Yeah.
And
Dave was playing with him.
and they did a few warm-up shows, including one in the club in Amsterdam, Netherlands, April '88, where they shot the footage for the Johnny Be Good video. Yep.
They brought they kind of went back to the leather and studs look on that tour.
Yeah,
but,
they did.
It was still kind of glammy looking as
On
well.
September 24th of '88, just before the band was about to perform a show in Dallas, Texas, they were greeted backstage by the sheriff with a subpoena leading to the infamous subliminal message trial in the summer of 1990.
Wow. Yeah, I remember Halford had his hair pulled back. He still had it long, but he had it pulled back like in a ponytail
Mm-hmm.
on that tour.
Yeah.
That's a tour, and I think somebody corrected me on it, but I believe that King Diamond did part of that Ram It Down tour, and we got Cinderella at the fairgrounds in Middle.
Yeah, we saw
Wow.
Cinderella at SPAC.
Yeah, but I don't.
I
don't-
never heard King Diamond toured with them. That's a
Yeah,
trip.
maybe that was wrong.
Now,
It
I
might
will-
have just been hearsay from young metalheads back in the
I
day.
know Pantera had put Cowboys from Hell out, and they went out on maybe the last leg of the Ram It Down tour or something. Maybe
Painkiller
they
tour.
did some. I know they did some shows with Pantera opening, because a
That'd
lot
be
of people
cool.
said that's where Rob kind of watched Phil. It was like, that's how I want to start acting on stage.
Right.
'Cause
Mhm.
by the time he came back on the Painkiller tour, he was out there doing all Anselmo's
Yeah.
moves.
Yeah.
You know?
That was the Painkiller tour. They toured Europe and brought Pantera as their
Okay.
opener on the Painkiller tour. And that was what helped Pantera break ground over there, because
Okay.
they'd never been to Europe before.
So Painkiller had come out in time for them to do that. Okay. I was
Right,
thinking
yeah.
I was thinking they did the end of the tour before it, but yeah. So yeah, you guys want to move on to Somewhere in Time from Maiden?
Well, yeah,
Please.
please. You hate that one, right, James?
Absolutely. I'd rather watch the Dave White Kegel exercise video tutorial that's up on YouTube.
Yeah, so when this one came out, so this was 86 as well. Good album. Not one of my favorite Maiden records, but I do like it. I did see him on this tour. Yngwie Malmsteen was the support on that one. On Trilogy had just come out for him. Great stage show. They had the inflatable Eddie head and hands. They were kind of like, in the band were kind of like playing in his hands. The show I was at, the pyro got too close to one of the hands and it deflated during the show, and they had to pull it off people in the front. It kind of fell down. But yeah, I actually saw him in Hampton, Virginia on that tour, and I think that show that I saw is on YouTube as far as the audio. And I always wonder, because I remember this guy walking in, and we're all standing on the floor as general admission, and this dude walks in on crutches, and I saw him take his crutches out, and he took some tape and he taped his crutches into a V shape. He pulls 2 microphones out and tapes to each part of the crutch. He's got running to a Walkman, and he throws his flannel shirt over top of it. He's just holding it up in the crowd, recording the show. And so years later, I'm on YouTube and I see the Hampton, Virginia show is on. I'm going, that's got to be the guy's tape that he recorded that night. It has to be.
Wow.
But this album's got some good songs. A lot of people said Maiden went really commercial on this one, but there were synthesizers on this album as well. I don't think they took the dive like Priest did. Title tracks, Caught Somewhere in Time. I love that. Wasted Years, one of the greatest Maiden songs ever to me. I mean, it's like you play that today anywhere and everybody's singing. You're in a bar and everybody's singing. You're in a cover band and you play it, everybody's singing it. It's just a great anthem. So I love Sea of Madness too. That's another great one. And Heaven Can Wait's good. I love Stranger in the Strange Land. I actually have a 12-inch single for Stranger in the Strange Land. That's another good. And the video was great. It showed the stage and everything from the tour. Bruce had that jacket with the lights look like all over it, some kind of like space age looking jacket and stuff. And they kind of went a little more I guess theatrical with their image on this tour as well. The guys did as far as what they were wearing and stuff, but it wasn't like Priest going in the glam route or anything. But yeah, I've never been that crazy about Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner or Alexander the Great. I know they're bringing Alexander the Great back, playing on this coming tour. But like I said, not one of my favorite Maiden records, but I do like this album quite a bit, and Wasted Years is one of my all-time favorite Maiden tracks. So this one for me is definitely going to take it between this and Twin Turbos for sure. This is going to be the one that I pick. Here's the this is the only thing you guys ever got the Castle CDs that came out.
I've seen those.
They're 2-disc versions, so you get the bonus disc in each one is the B-sides that were available for each one of the singles that were released. So that's a 2 CD set. They're pretty cool if you can find them, kind of collectible nowadays. They got a little Obi strip that goes on them too. It's pretty cool. Cool.
All right, James.
Yeah, pretty much same for me. This is obviously Somewhere in Time fucking mops the floor with those 2 Priest records, in my humble opinion. To echo what Tony Dio said, yeah, Wasted Years is one of my all-time top favorite Iron Maiden songs. I love that song. Deja Vu, which kind of gets buried in there and not really talked about. I dig that song a lot, man. That's a catchy fucking tune.
I gotta check that. I haven't listened to that in forever.
Goddamn good song. And I like Alexander the Great. For me, this is where they start adding the epics in and start really dipping their toes in the prog genre a little bit.
That's true.
And even with the synth, and now I wasn't around. Well, I was around back when this came out, but I was a kid. I wasn't listening to Maiden and hadn't been a hardcore fan for years. But I have read several articles and old interviews with Maiden where 1 or 2 of the guys in the band had said, we'll never use synthesizers. And then all of a sudden, this album shows up. Now, I think unlike Turbo, adding the synthesizers doesn't take any of the grit or heaviness away. I think this album is just as heavy as any of the previous Maiden records. The songwriting is fine. The production's fine. So it just shows that, even if you're going to use synthesizers, that's not what's making the album bad. It's the songwriting wasn't there for the Priest records, and the production just was like so thin and made them just sound like so small. Where this album, it sounds like it's a big album from a big band. So that's most of the reason why this takes it and just body slams it like Hulk Hogan with Andre the Giant in WrestleMania 3. So this takes it. It's Somewhere in Time by what they would call a country mile. And if we're talking about album artwork, come on, man. I can't tell you how many nights I sat stoned listening to this album and just staring at all the cool little Easter egg things inside this artwork. You get like the Egyptian shit in there from Power Slave. There's the original Eddie from the first Iron Maiden on the front cover. There's, Ace's High Bar and all that cool. It's just cool little shit.
Easter eggs.
Yeah. It's fucking awesome. So that's what makes this album even cooler for me, is the artwork is just so badass. This might be my favorite Eddie too. It might be my favorite Eddie. I dig the whole sci-fi Terminator kind of looking thing. I love this Eddie so much. to me, this is iconic. So yeah,
For sure.
Some
somewhere
of
in
Derek Riggs' best work for sure.
absolutely. So somewhere in time takes it.
So I guess it's my turn. So yeah, somewhere in time. One of my favorite Maiden records. I mean, out of this run of Maiden albums, I mean, this album, the Caught Somewhere in Time to kick it off, such a powerful song. Wasted Years, everybody said what a great song. I like the Sea of Madness a lot too.
Yeah.
Having a Wait isn't my
Yeah.
favorite song off this album, but Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, I love that song. Opposite of what Tony was saying. And Stranger in a Strange Land, another just epic, great tune. Deja Vu, I think it's a strong song too. It's just like the meaning behind it, like, been to places where you've never been, but like, and you feel like you've been there before. I just remember like Bruce playing that. Wasn't on this, probably on this tour, but he's played it other times where he's kind of like, he plays that and he's up and he's like on the monitors and he's kind of like tightrope walking while he does it. Yeah. I still like that style of Deja Vu, I thought. And Alexander the Great, I'm looking so forward to seeing that before I'm live. I do plan on seeing the Maiden tour once when it comes around this fall. Probably at the Prudential Center in Newark. And of course, they're on a tour that's kind of promoting this album, and they're still doing some Sujitsu stuff with it too. But looking forward to that tour. But yeah, I'm gonna agree with James. There's no way in heck those two albums, even if you double them up, are giving this album a run for its money in my book. There it is, The Future Past. Cyborg Eddie's coming to North America. And we'll all buy t-shirts inside. We'll buy bootlegs in the parking lot, and we'll have more t-shirts. I just showed off a whole pile of t-shirts I bought on my spring tour blitz that we just talked about. Me and Tony did, and Chris Allo just did an episode on how many tours we just saw, but that's a whole nother episode. We'll look for that on the channel. And I think Tony beat me and Chris Allo. We had so much going on. But all right, heading to Tim.
Yeah. So God, I remember when this album came out, it always kind of had a little bit of a sci-fi kind of vibe to it. And I concur with everything everyone else has said. Caught Where Somewhere in Time's a great song. Wasted Years, great song. There really isn't. It's kind of funny because I haven't listened to this album in a while, and I'm looking at the tracks. Like I got to listen to Deja Vu because I can't remember how that song goes. I haven't listened to it in a while, but it is a great album. Like to me, this was like that golden era of Maiden, right up through like Seventh Son, and they kind of lost me a little bit after that. But I would agree, and I would have definitely put it ahead of the twin turbos as well. If I was, comparing them. Yeah, just great stuff. And again, the fact that these songs, after all these years, Wasted Years is still a huge song, getting a lot of play. I think it speaks a lot about the strength. I think that album is stronger than I gave it credit for being back when it first came out. I think, when you look back on it, it is definitely one of those albums that stood the test of time. And the artwork on it is great. I don't have all these props, unfortunately, because I have the cassette version of that. Like I have so many of these albums, and they're all buried away. And of course, nowadays, I don't. I have the cassette. I don't think I have the I don't have any MP versions of that. But no, it's great stuff. I mean, yeah, I would definitely put that. That beats out the twin turbos, definitely. Great artwork, great songwriting. And again, that was when they started to get into going more in that proggy direction. That was like for me, really the beginning of it. I think maybe they teased it in Power Slave when they did Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, but that was kind of like from there on, that's where they really kind of went in that prog metal direction. So yeah, definitely that wins for me as well.
Cool. Count Ralphus.
All right, so the first five Maiden albums are just so great. it was like one of the best runs of albums of all time. To me, this is the first time Maiden's showing signs of going down a little bit. And it was the most popular album. I mean, they played the hell out of the videos on MTV at the time. I think it was their biggest tour that they did. And it was my first time seeing them. I didn't get to see the Live After Death tour. I went to the famous show where they burning cars in the parking lot and the riot. I mentioned it already on here. So I have a great nostalgia for the album, and I still loved it. I was still on board with Maiden at the time, not like with Priest, what they did. And I'll go back to the album and still enjoy it. But to me, nothing comes close in the rest of their career to the first 5 albums. The artwork, like these guys were all saying, was amazing. If you read that Derek Riggs book that I showed the last time, he talks about Easter eggs on there that I never even noticed before. There's so much shit going on that album. Got this big Eddie somewhere in time
Cool.
figure. Yeah, it blows away the Priest, the Twin Turbos album for me. Not even close.
Cool, man. But we were, yeah, so actually, it's getting late and I'm getting pretty tired. So I think we're going to continue this episode. Not this episode, where I'm going to continue the Priest and Maiden and break this up a little bit tonight, because me and Tony were just I've been in this seat for about 3 hours now. And
Oh boy.
and I tell you what, I don't think it's a bad thing to spread it out a little bit. So we'll be back next time. We'll be discussing Painkiller. And we'll be
Seventh
discussing,
Son.
yeah, or is it Painkiller and Seventh Son?
Yeah,
And maybe
might
that-
have to even kind of mention
the No Prayer.
No Prayer and Fear of the Dark, maybe, which is the better Maiden album between the two of those. Maybe.
Yeah, we could definitely do that.
next
We
time.
could definitely
Before
do that.
before we go into the completely changes for both of those bands with frontmen.
And we'll do a whole episode on who did that better, who did the Blaze Bailey era, the Ripper Owens, what did we like better from there, and then of course then we continue on into when Rob and Bruce came back and
Right. The
up to the
comebacks.
current. So we'll keep this thing going, but I think it's best we do some more notes on the next episode and wrap this one up, and keeps it a little bit we're still on here about an hour now, so
Yeah.
but and we'll try to keep a little bit better short attention span. But it's been great to sit and discuss all this again tonight and give the channel time with
Wrapping up.
I can't even talk, I'm blah blah blah. But Tony Dio, James from Crucial Pain, Tim Dennebaum, and Count Ralphus. And we just put up another episode where we're talking about concerts. So this and that episode will go up this week, and we'll be back next week. I'm also thinking about just getting us on here and discussing the new Kerry King album too.
Yeah.
Whoever wants to do that, maybe just a quick album review with a couple of us on the Kerry King. Because you got people that hate that album, you got people that love that album, you got people that like the album. I think it's a pretty decent record, but they get a lot of, so maybe we'll do something like that. But I want to take a minute to thank everyone for watching the channel. Please mention what you like between the Twin Turbos and Somewhere in Time. And take a minute to subscribe. It means a lot. And to like and share the video around to your friends. So we'll see you next time on the Rock Fantasy Files channel. Bang. And where's Obi? Is Obi
All
alive?
right.
Obi, you're missing. It's the first one he's ever missed, I think.
MIA.
He's MIA. He's missing in action. Maybe he's out on a hot date or something.
Maybe.
We'll see you next time. Bye.